Hello, everybody. Welcome. Let me know how the sound quality is on YouTube and X if you get a chance. I would appreciate that. Thank you. Let's get started with the markets. Overall markets are up today. Dow Jones, driven by Nvidia and chip stocks in general. Dow Jones up only 0.2%. Dow Jones 30 stocks equal weighted, up only 30%. Price weighted. Nasdaq is up 1.5%, driven primarily by Nvidia, up 4%, Microsoft up 4%, Broadcom up a couple percent, Oracle up 7% because of the Stargate announcement, I suppose. Um, all chip stocks are up today. All semiconductor stocks are up, and most technology stocks are up as well. Apple flat. Tesla is down. Automakers are down in general. General Motors down 2%, Ford down 4%. Utilities are down substantially. That's interesting. Across the board. And it might have to do with the tick up in 10-year yield today, 4 or 5 basis points. Financials are mixed. Berkshire Hathaway down 2%. Regional banks are down a couple percent. And credit services are fine. I'm keeping an eye on credit quality of consumers. Yeah, it seems pretty healthy so far. Credit spreads are low, not much of a stress build up. There was some stress build up last year, but I think it may take a bit more unemployment rate increase for that to continue. Healthcare mixed. So generally speaking, it's big tech companies are higher. Everything else is mixed today. Tesla in the last couple of days traded more like an automaker, along with Rivian, GM, Ford, as opposed to these big tech companies, which is interesting too. Curious about people's thoughts about the Stargate announcement. Um, Elon came out and said SoftBank doesn't have the money, but Sam Altman just responded and said they already started building, etc. I don't know what that means. I mean, do you have $500 billion or not? Um, Gavin Baker also came out and said SoftBank doesn't have the money. Quite a bit of a drift going on between Microsoft and OpenAI, sounds like, um, which is interesting. I think this is I think Microsoft's actions are very important in terms of demand for NVIDIA chips. The primary reason why I'm short NVIDIA stock is because, which by the way, it still hasn't hit all-time highs despite this massive announcement. $147 per share, um, basically where it was on January 6th, and the stock has been stable over the last 6 months or so. Since June 18, stock hasn't done much. Up, down, but it's been left behind of the other companies surging. So I think the momentum in this $3.6 trillion company today is lower than it was just about a year ago, earlier 2024, when it was surging. PE ratio of 58 times. That's going to come down when they announce their Q4 earnings. But I think that there will be some. I think the guidance for Nvidia is going to surprise people. Anyway, that's my thesis. I guess we'll see if I'm right or wrong. Nvidia announces earnings. Let's see. I think they announced earnings a little later than others. February 26th, confirmed. February 26th is when they're going to announce. So about a month from now. I think Tesla's announced next week. So I have a short on it as well. Um, just on the Tesla front, Volvo came out with an EX30. I'll pin this at the top of our screens. Volvo is bringing EX30 to the US market. Let's look at the details of this company. It seems to be a pretty solid car for the price. I mean, not many EVs in this price point. It's starting at $36,000. So average price say $40,000 with some of the options. So it's a Model Y competitor, really, something between Model 3 and Model Y. And to the extent that Tesla was looking to bring a subcompact vehicle, um, then it would be a competition for that. EX30 is a new nameplate for Volvo using the EX prefix the company is reserving for its next generation EVs. While the EX30 was originally supposed to go on sale in the summer of 2024, Volvo delayed the SUV's arrival, with initial deliveries of the twin motor model now coming before the end of 2024 and the full range becoming available in 2025. When it does hit dealerships, EX30 will join the larger EX90 SUV in the brand growing lineup of electric SUVs. Core single motor 36,000, twin motor 46, plus single motor 46, ultimate twin motor 47, ultra single motor, so a bunch of different trims. Um, 64 kilowatt hour battery pack, 261 miles of driving per charge. So it doesn't match the Model Y in terms of charging, but to the extent that somebody doesn't like Elon and just doesn't want to buy a Tesla, this will be competition for the Model Y and the Model 3 in the future. EX30 sports cool LED lighting elements and Volvo's justly lauded comfy bucket seats, but its cabin makes sustainably a side dish to its style. Volvo has chosen recycled materials for SUV's upholstery, blah, blah, blah. Bunch of BS. Let's see, overview. Okay. Pricing. All right. 0 to 60, roughly 5.1 seconds with the single motor setup. Twin motor in just 3.4 seconds. So it's very quick. Very quick. Range 261 miles of driving per charge in the rear-wheel drive model. All wheel drive models can carry an EPA estimated 253 miles per charge. And both can be charged on a DC fast charging connection with a peak charging rate of 153 kilowatts. Volvo claims the battery can be charged from 10 to 80% in under half an hour. The MPGE is pretty good, 124 and 103 on the 18-inch wheels, 127 highway, 104 in the 19 and 20-inch wheels. So it's very, I mean, that's very much in line with um, Hyundai Kona and Kia Niro EV, as well as the Model Y. Let me see if I can find. Anyway, all right. Let's see. Tesla stock is about flat for the last 5 days and for the last month. Treasury yields are up today. 10-year Treasury yield is up 4 basis points. 30-year up 3 basis points. 5-year up 4 basis points. Oil prices are at $75 per barrel. Mortgage applications are at rock bottom for several months in a row now. More than a year, actually. They've been rock bottom. Thank you, Henry, for letting me know that the sound is good on X, and Henry letting me know on YouTube as well. Thank you. All right, let's look into Stargate a little bit. Wall Street Journal headline: Musk pours cold water on Trump-backed Stargate AI project. Musk bashes Trump-backed Stargate deal. They don't actually have the money. This is a very interesting move by Elon. Trump is very proud of these announcements, and to kind of undermine the announcement in such a way is something I wouldn't have expected. But interesting move. Musk undercuts Trump's Stargate AI investment announcement. Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk said OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank don't actually have the money to back up their pledge to invest $500 billion in US artificial AI infrastructure. President Donald Trump touted the joint venture, dubbed the Stargate project, on the first full day of his second term. SoftBank has well under $10 billion secured. I have that on good authority, Musk wrote overnight on his social media platform. This question, Musk's response was asked to the ARM's CEO this morning on CNBC, and the ARM's CEO said something along the lines of, "There will be more announcements related to Stargate coming from financial partners," which I guess the Saudis. Elon Musk claimed overnight Tuesday that tech giants OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank don't have enough money to fulfill their high-profile pledge to invest $500 billion in US AI infrastructure. The Tesla made a comment. Trump, biggest financial backer by far in 2024 election, Musk currently chairs a major White House government efficiency effort. On Wednesday morning, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman replied directly to Musk. Wrong, as you surely know. Want to come visit the first site already underway? This is great for the country. I realize what is great for the country isn't always what's optimal for your companies, but in your new role, I hope you'll mostly put America first. OpenAI and Oracle did not immediately respond to CNBC's request for comment on Musk's claim. SoftBank declined to comment. Musk's post about SoftBank was far off base, according to a person familiar with the AI project, who was granted anonymity to discuss the situation. There is no doubt that Musk's testy relationship with Altman was the catalyst for his post about Stargate, the person added. Musk's comments undermined Trump's announcement Tuesday afternoon that Stargate will invest $500 billion at least, create over 100,000 American jobs almost immediately. I think it's going to be something very special. It'll lead to something that could be the biggest of all, said Trump. As he spoke, Trump was flanked by Altman, Oracle co-founder Larry Ellison, and SoftBank CEO Masa. Ellison said that at the event that 10 data centers, each 500,000 square feet, were already under construction in Texas, and that 10 more are in the works. Musk, who leads Trump's new government efficiency advisory board, DOGE, has a tense relationship with Altman. In March, Musk and his AI startup XAI sued OpenAI, alleging breach of contract. Musk later dropped that suit, and in August sued Altman in federal court. Altman's response to Onyx matches the tone he has previously taken toward Musk in public. I may turn out to be wrong, but I believe pretty strongly that Elon will do the right thing, Altman said in December, when asked if he was concerned about how Musk might wield his White House influence. OpenAI said in Tuesday's statement on X that Stargate will begin deploying $100 billion immediately. Khan will be a new chairman of the new company, whose initial equity founders are SoftBank, OpenAI, Oracle, and the UAE-based lender NGX, according to the Post. News of the infrastructure initiative sent Oracle shares 7% higher on Tuesday. OpenAI's post also listed Microsoft as one of its key initial technology partners in Stargate. The company said earlier in January that it plans to invest $80 billion in the next fiscal year on AI-capable data centers. Yeah, it's interesting that Microsoft shifted from exclusivity for ChatGPT running on Azure to now right of first refusal. So I guess it's obvious at this point that the biggest major divergence between Satya and Altman are is the how much money they want to invest into buying GPUs from now on. I think Sam is just, let's keep going. Doesn't matter if we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars or trillions of dollars to develop AGI. Once we develop AGI, it's not going to matter. Sam is in that mindset. And I think he was able to convince Microsoft for a while to keep spending. But Microsoft, as I've been saying over the last few months, that Microsoft is going to have to tighten the purse a little bit here because they also have, and if you listen to Satya's interview on CNBC, he basically confirms that they have their own limitations. He says something along those lines. So, and that's the money. The money is the limitation here. And this is true for ChatGPT, for Microsoft, for Tesla FSD, and other projects. It's obvious that the more you spend, the better you get. But without a credible path to profitability, as ChatGPT doesn't seem to have, um, you have a big problem here. Um, any questions, comments? Please request to speak. I think Microsoft's actions are very important here in terms of understanding future. Satya pulling the plug basically on ChatGPT. They spent tens of billions of dollars and have nothing to show for it. Right of first refusal means they're going to keep Azure as occupied as possible, but they don't think any further massive investments are necessary at this point. So if you want to train your or use other clouds, then go ahead and do it. I guess Oracle is the next in line here for ChatGPT. We have a new speaker. Request and speak. Let's see here. I don't know this person. Leave a comment if you have a question. S&P 500 hits record a high as AI powers tech rally. So more AI hype happening right now in the markets. Um, Curious to see if anybody's going to be able to turn this into profit other than Meta. But Netflix, Travelers, and Procter Gamble post solid results. Um, JP Morgan's Diamond says U.S. stock prices are kind of inflated. A rally in big tech and a batch of earnings from corporate heavyweights drove stocks toward the record close in a continuation of the surge fueled by the strength in corporate America. With an almost 1% advance, the S&P 500 briefly touched its intraday high near 6,100. Nvidia led gains in mega caps while Oracle soared 7% on a $100 billion joint venture with SoftBank Group and OpenAI. Netflix surged 11% amid its biggest ever subscriber gain. Travelers and Procter& Gamble climbed on stronger. Let's look at Travelers. Up 4%. In the last month, up 3%. Travelers Q4 earnings surpassed estimates on higher underwriting gain. Let's read these results. Shares in the travelers companies rose in intraday trading Wednesday as increased premiums drove higher than estimated quarterly results at the property and casualty insurer. The insurer reported premiums for business insurance, bond and specialty insurance, and personal insurance all increased. The travelers' combined ratio moved 2.6 percentage points higher to 83.2%. Shares rose in intraday trading Wednesday as increased premiums drove higher than estimated quarterly results at the property and casualty insurer. EPS of 8.96, well above the 6.67 average estimate. Revenue increased 10% to 12 billion. Core income, which excludes investment gains or losses and discontinued operations, among other things, jumped to a record $2.1 billion during the quarter, CEO said, driven by strong growth in earned premiums and excellent profitability. Net written premiums rose across the segments of business insurance, bond and specialty insurance, and personal insurance, and grew 7% in the fourth quarter year over year. The combined ratio, a measure of profitability used by an insurance company to gauge how well it is performing in its daily operations, rose to 83.2%. I still haven't been able to um, identify why Booking Holdings stocks dropped yesterday so much and down again 1% today. It was down about 5% yesterday and at some point almost as high as 6% and continue to decline. And I don't see any news, but this is a pretty big move for a relatively stable company. So if anybody knows anything, I would appreciate it. Stocks are down since December, about 14%. $153 billion company. It could be heralder of a slowdown in traveling. That's why I'm watching it. Expedia down 4% today. Interesting. Price to sales for Booking is 7 times. PEG ratio is only 1. Forward PE 22. Healthy profit margins. Yeah, very interesting. Booking Holdings to webcast fourth quarter results on February 20th. Booking Holdings insiders sell $7 million of stock, possibly signaling caution. That was 6 hours ago. They're small, but let's look at if there's any big sales here, inside transactions. A few $1 million, nothing too big. There's a $20 million sale and a $15 million sale back in March 15. No, that wouldn't do it. 3,400. Yeah, yeah, interesting. No saying red flags. All right. Nasdaq is coming off a little bit. S&P 500 is a little coming off too. Russell 2000 is down today, 0.7%. So this is just increased concentration in Max 7 companies that's still driving stocks. Henry says Tesla can't seem to retake and stay above $428 rejected six times already. Will it break out next week or will we look back to say that was a signal to de-risk? Maybe Henry can come up and tell us a bit more about the technical analysis of Tesla and give us an overview what he's seeing. I would appreciate that. Nick Timeros on the macro front, Nick Timeros says the Labor Department's all tenant rent index, which leads shelter inflation and CPI, rose at a much slower pace last quarter. It was up 3.2% over the four quarters and the Q4 versus 3.9% Q3 and 5.5% 1 year ago. It's very close to the 3.1% average between 2017 and 2019. Yeah. There's quite a bit of weakening on the real estate market right now in the first couple of weeks of January. It's still very early to kind of say how the market is going to shape up. We're not going to know until kind of mid-February, late February. But the super early reading is a weak real estate market this year. Edmunds named Tesla Model 3 their top-rated electric car for 2025. A major facelift in 2024 brought improvements everywhere, including more range, better ride quality, sharper handling, and a nicer interior, with finally professional build quality. Even better, none of this came with a price hike. The Model 3 is still one of the most affordable EVs out there. Tesla FSD tracker showing about 97%, not much of a change over there either, getting up to about 10,000 miles now on V13, still on the hardware 4, and 97% drives complete without a critical disengagement. 200 city miles to critical disengagement. Choices, that's going to have to be tens of thousands. I agree. We're still a long way away from FSD being a major driver of Tesla's bottom line or top line. There's some rumors that Tesla told suppliers to prep for Optimus production, but we'll see if it happens. FSD rollout has dramatically slowed down in recent years, weeks for some reason. About Tesla says another wave of software version just went out this afternoon. As before, FSD V12.6.1 is going to Hardware 3 Model Y and refresh Model S and X Tesla vehicles. Cybertrucks are getting FSD 13.2.4. Model 3 still appears to be excluded, likely awaiting a different build. A couple of years ago, we talked in Tesla Live how, you know, merging all of these different versions for different vehicles under one stack would accelerate training, but still hasn't that hasn't happened. Now even Model 3 has a different needs a different build, and Model 3 owners are kind of being left behind with these FSD rollouts. Why is Model 3 excluded from the 2024 rollout? 24.45.25.15. FSD v12.6.1 is end-to-end, meaning video in and control out. While it's one FSD version for all models, the control is slightly different for different Tesla models. My guess, this build has failed Model 3 certification. Wow, interesting. Let's repost that. If so, Tesla AI team will have to go through another update, test, certified release cycle in order to support the Model 3. Hopefully, it won't take too long. So that was January 18. I've been hearing about complaints about this for a couple of weeks now. So, yeah, that's very interesting. More Tesla vehicles are getting the software updates. Around 13% of North American fleet is not including the rollout. Our 3 Model Y, XS, and Cybertruck still no Model 3s. FSD 13, about 20% of the fleet. In yesterday's space, Wes and I discussed how the test time compute could benefit NVIDIA on the inference side. I did some research into it. I still don't see it. Next time he comes, I'll ask more. But I still don't see how that benefits NVIDIA. Andrew, how are you? Would you like to give us an overview of Tesla's technical analysis?
Hey, man, how are you?
Good.
Good day, everyone. Yeah, it's been a while since I think I last spoke, but I've just been listening in the background and taking in non-technical analysis, more more of your take on it, on the business side, the macro side, and it did help me a lot. Just wanted to say that before I go into my TA perspective, which is it's been really hard. As you know, Yaman, I take a look at the liquidity, um, and I trade basically, in a nutshell, without getting into too much details. I basically trade liquidity levels, and from the beginning of the year to mid-January, I think maybe till end of last week, it's it was good for trend traders, intraday traders, even I would even say swing traders. But since Friday, something changed. Um, uh, the liquidity is like uh, a lot more violent. It's definitely not retail volume. We're talking about like at minimum 30, 50K bids and asks. And it almost feels like the market makers are giving retail traders a depending on the time of the day, pockets of opportunity to trade. And I know that sounds a little too general, but it generally Tesla likes to move a lot. Everyone knows that. But it's the reason why I think why this week is a little bit more difficult is because these market makers, like to call them, is that uh, they buy up liquidity or they sell liquidity not in the direction that you think they're doing it. So if they're sitting on the bid, you're thinking, oh, someone large is buying 50 to 100,000 shares. But just take a look at the other day. There were plenty of bids, but they used those bids to drive it down even further. So I mean, it's from a technical perspective, from macro perspective, like the company did not issue any fundamental reasons to go higher. I know the new model refresh Y, the the Trump inauguration, anticipation leading up to that, um, but nothing really in terms of numbers. Even the delivery numbers kind of disappointed. So I'm very curious. Yeah, I mean, I like to kind of mix up macros with technicals. Although I rely on technicals like 99% of it, but I still like to see next week. I'm very eager to find out not just Musk's sentiment during the call, but can we mm, is it are they going to give us something to kind of not us but like the Wall Street, um something to kind of say, okay, we're good for now. um
Yeah. So
yeah,
what could be a potential statement that would indicate that to you?
you know, I've been subscribing to FSD for a while, and i- it's no big news that everyone and I'm also I rely on these experiences, because that's the closest I'll get to the company per se. And FSD 13 is mind blowing. Like maybe my expectations was, the bar was a little lower than most because I'm kind of critical in that regard. But it gave me a vision of what to expect in the coming months, years. But like I think you said, Yaman, or someone said on your space that whenever they release a new version, there's an excitement period and then it dies down. Um, I'm saying this because maybe on that call, they can maybe. I'd be surprised if they start to release subscriber numbers. Um, that would be something. That would be a nice surprise that they're confident enough to say, it's not r- astronomically high, but we are in a level where we want to share this with the street. Um, but from a technical perspective, like you see it right now, it just blew away 35,000 shares, and it's going down to the next liquidity zone, which is 419, and you see about 23K And they're using these levels to do kind of like they don't want traders to be comfortable. Like Tesla was never like a comfortable trade per se, but I think a lot of traders that trade Tesla is are not making as much as they used to before. So let's say up to like early January. Um, and I had just have my spidey senses on him saying, I don't want to take big size. I don't want to even swing trade. Besides my long term core position, even on the options flow, the big strikes right now are. Let me take a look. They're like 420 is the nearest one. Uh, and then ironically, there's 430, which is higher than the 420. So it doesn't surprise me that if you layering in options activity or positions, these market makers they're selling these options. Whoever's retail or hedge funds are buying these calls, someone has to sell to them. And I think the guys that are selling these 430 calls to the crowd per se, um, I think they're limiting that whenever it gets up there, there's humongous size. Yaman, I'm seeing like hundreds of thousands of shares just sitting there,
Yeah,
just blocking it.
yeah.
That's
Jimmy, thank you, Henry. I appreciate that. I want to learn more about, you said you look at liquidity levels. I really would love to learn more about that in future episodes too. So please feel free to feel free to come up whenever you have time and tell us about it. Give us an update on it.
appreciate it, Yaman. Thanks
Um,
for the time.
before I go to Jimmy, do you have any thoughts on NVIDIA from a technical perspective?
Uh, Nvidia is more constructive, I would say, than Tesla. Tesla, I just feel like there's a man behind the curtain, and that guy has hundreds of thousands of shares on an intraday, like hourly basis. Uh, Nvidia doesn't even AMD. I'm trading AMD. Caught it down in the like 116s, 117s, and just offloaded some shares today. But AMD and Nvidia, I'm not saying that they're super easy to trade, but you don't see this liquidity. What do you call it? Shenanigans.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Tesla's a very highly manipulated stock. There's no question about it.
Yeah, they just blew out
Yeah,
418.
yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
You never know where it's gonna go. Jimmy, maybe Jimmy is the one manipulating it. Jimmy, are you the big whale with millions of shares? Jimmy, take a break from manipulating Tesla stock and come to talk to us.
Can you hear me or not?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead. All right, we're having a connection issue here. Give me 1 second. Jimmy, go ahead. Jimmy, go ahead.
No, I am not that guy, but I imagine it's probably RenCap or the others who are doing it.
You imagine who?
Renaissance Capital, most likely,
Um,
and Utah.
yeah, you never know. It could be people you least expect, people who shouldn't be doing it. What do you think about Stargate announcement?
I'm positive on it. I think it's great. I think it's wonderful. I don't understand all the negativity around it, though. I don't get it.
Well, if you look at the government's efforts to push EV adoption with the $7,500 credit, and then with supercharger spending or battery production credits, they amounted to not much. They haven't really done what's intended. Why do you think this time will be different with this government spending?
Well, there are some differences. I think that rather than routing it through federal agencies, hopefully we can get companies involved. You got Larry Ellison now involved, Elon, you got a few others, Larry. Yeah, but it's more than just that, guys. There's a lot more transparency regarding these types of contracts and the build outs and so forth. I can understand there's a lot of pessimism regarding large government spending on infrastructure, which never seems to get done. It's very fair, but in truth, in history, there have been many examples where the government did build stuff and it did get done. I could go through the list if you want. Everything from highways to airports. LaGuardia Airport looks quite nice, for example, now compared to before. That was through a large amount of government funds. The DC subway, which people say looks pretty nice. I think most people would agree with that, and so on and so forth. There are examples. I mean, the Boston underpass, that was a very good example. Half it was paid for by the federal government. You could go down the list, but in terms of cherry picking EVs, it's very fair to say that a lot of it has been misspent historically. But there's been a lot of lessons learned, and I think Elon and others giving updates on the progress of that build out, I'm very optimistic about it.
So Elon says they don't have any money. They don't have the money. What do you think?
Oh, the money can come from somewhere. There are options. There are arms of the federal government which do provide loans. Now, historically speaking, everything the Department of Commerce to OPIC, which is like basically an overseas American bank that acts like a World Bank version of something that actually makes money. There are ways to finance this stuff. There are basically federal investment banks which exist for this purpose. And this has been going back since the Marshall Plan. The Marshall Plan, people say it's just a lot of money the Americans gave to the Europeans. No, it was actually a conglomeration of American banks along with the federal government who were issuing corporate debt on behalf of those European banks, who were then issuing paper to local companies to build out that stuff. So that's that's how I would say that this process will work. Is the federal government will have an investment arm built out for offering these loans to American banks, who will then go on and loan this money out. Kind of like how green bonds were used back in the day for this purpose, for green bonds for reducing emissions and so forth. But instead, it'll be specializing for building out the EV infrastructure. It was very different from how it worked before, where it was federal agencies subcontracting and contracting to different companies, which never actually went anywhere and so forth. I think the debt option makes a lot more sense and historically has worked quite well. And I think that's what they're talking about right now.
Okay.
The 10 billion
Now,
in cash is very different
I
than
got you.
getting the debt for it. Yeah.
I got you. Okay. So this is very much a case like, if you build it, they will come, the demand will be there for this compute. And you are 100% confident in that. I think Wes is 100% confident that there will be use. Doesn't matter if you spend hundreds of billions of dollars or trillions of dollars, as I think Sam Altman put it one time, that the demand will be there, that people will find ways to use this compute. Is that your view as well?
Again, historically, we've had programs like this, everything from the space race to building out military weapons programs, where we basically threw money at these huge issues and figured out there'd be a use case for it in the future. Sometimes it didn't work, sometimes it worked out. One example of it working out quite well was our program to basically build out an engines program, for hypersonics, and we now have one. Another one be the B-52 nuclear weapons program. So I don't know if you're old enough for the 1980s arguments about the nuclear trident. It was basically the idea of you have nuclear weapons, ICBMs from submarines and so forth, along with SAC, which is the from the air, as well as from land-based nuclear weapon silos. And it was a large amount of money. It was for about 2 years in the 1980s. This was the constant debate. Do we spend all this money on it? Will it actually give us anything? And the Cold War ended, but we still spent money because it made us a lot safer. We're able to massively increase our infrastructure for our nuclear protection, and it costs a lot of money. That, I think, considering it, we don't have to spend that money again. We don't have to worry about our nuclear protection now because we did spend the money in the 1980s. And Reagan pushed that forward. So there are many examples in American history where this kind of concern, it's a national security program, it's a national concern, and it's about American resiliency. Those three things usually get the money through when you make those arguments. And even in the 1960s, we had that problem. Are we being too soft on communism? Should we spend our money on, all sorts of stuff? I could go on a big list of it, but that is the argument being made today. And it took a while for this narrative
Okay,
to come
but
about.
you didn't answer the question. The question is, we're building hundreds of billions of dollars of data centers in the U.S. alone, and at least Microsoft's CEO appears to disagree with the notion that the demand will be there. It seems to me that the switch from OpenAI, ChatGPT being exclusively on Azure to now switching to first refusal signals to me that the Microsoft CEO does not expect demand to increase as fast as Sam Altman thinks. What do you think?
Well, this is another example why they need to fire that Microsoft CEO. Look, there are going to be massive use cases for American resiliency. It's a national security concern at this point. Is it about profitability? No. And I think that's his problem. I mean, I understand he's an American citizen now, but if you truly believe in this country and want to protect it, if there's going to be a near peer conflict in the future, an enemy that has better compute faster and is able to basically train models that could be used for tools to destroy us is the greatest concern that we should have right now, other than nuclear war. And that is something he doesn't understand. Profitability, at this point in the narrative, is second. Now, to answer your question, will there be use cases? My question to you is, does it have to be private use cases only? Can they not have public good use cases?
It can be. Do you think that's going to make up for the slowdown in
We
Microsoft's
spent
spending growth?
$1.2 trillion in the F-35 program in
Mhm,
total,
mhm.
and the cost and liabilities for it in the future. One
Okay.
program.
Okay.
I mean,
Let
this
me
is
ask you
nothing.
something. Let me ask you something. If Sam Altman came to you and said, and let's say you have the money, I need $100 billion to my board GPUs from NVIDIA, would you give it to him?
I would not give it anything to him because I
Okay,
dislike
but what
him.
about Elon came? Elon came to you and said, you know
Yes,
what? I
the
need,
answer is yes.
give me the other, I need
I would
$100
ask him why he's
billion.
asking for so little. I would say, why so little? Why not more? Well, you may laugh, but DARPA has a huge budget, and on the side they have a shadow budget, which is
So
basically.
let's say you have $100 billion sitting in your bank account, burning a hole in your pocket, and Elon says, "I need $100 billion," and you say yes. So you
I
would
would say
go
take
all
way
in.
more.
You would go all in on XAI.
Yes, and this
Then
is
what are you
nothing.
doing
I
here?
don't
Then
understand
what are
what
you doing
the
here?
argument.
Why are you here? Why aren't you invested 100% XAI? He needs the
Isn't
money
that
right
a
now.
private share offering?
He is raising money. I'm sure you're rich enough to qualify for these private offerings.
Two hundred fifty thousand dollar qualification?
He is raising the money. So why aren't you giving your money all to him? Why are you wasting time in these spaces?
I'm not. First off, I would never consider being in your space a waste of time. Number two, I have seen those prospectuses to invest. Number three, I already feel that as an individual, I'm doing my civic duty. I've already given him a lot of money through Tesla to build the future. And my responsibility has ended. The responsibility of the federal government has begun. And I want to say this, $100 billion is nothing. Those are peanuts. We're spending $100 billion on the B-22, for example, that's supposed to replace the B-1s. Actually, you'd be probably even be more than this, because the new budget's supposed to come out where they're going to estimate it again pretty soon. So this is nothing. That's just one program. I don't really understand what the issue is of 100 billion. It should be 1 trillion if you think about it. Because if it's $1 trillion to protect this country, we will find that money. That's not an issue for us.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you know how much we're going to spend on upgrading our nuclear defense program in the coming budget, by any chance?
Mm-mm.
More than 100 billion.
All right. So what
They're
does that
asking
mean?
for,
Gotcha.
the new military budget, which for this year, 2025, it's
Hmm.
asking for a lot. It's the biggest ever.
Hmm.
I mean, that program can be subsumed into our military defense budget as well.
Okay. We have a new speaker coming up. If anybody wants to share their views, you're welcome to come to speaker board. Steve, go ahead.
No, I mean, I'm completely aligned with Jimmy the Otter. I mean, the funding that we spend on defense, I mean, it's paramount to keep that security going. And $500 billion is a drop in the bucket for the potential of this being treated as something equivalent to a nuclear weapon, given the implications of creating the future of AI with the agents that will come from it. It could be used in very nefarious ways. And the amount of money we spend on aircraft alone um, far exceeds what we're going to spend on AI. I totally agree. I think $1 trillion is better. It's just utilizing that $1 trillion in a way that makes sense. Because the amount of data that we create online every day exceeds the previous year. And a lot of that could be just bogus tweets or YouTube videos, but all that collective data can be used in a way that could be beneficial, um, especially being risk averse.
I just want to quickly comment on 2 points there. First point, I want to ask gentlemen, what makes us the most powerful country in the world? A lot of people would say, historically, it's creating a spending arms race. We did that with nuclear weapons. We did that with space. We did that even with proxy conflicts. And this is the same. If Taiwan is invaded tomorrow by China, we would lose a huge piece of our national defense security because we'd lose access to manufacturing that is essential for both the military and for the public good. Now, the second point, which is extremely important, is this. The United States of America has always focused on the most important aspects of our security. If there's a narrative where we all agree that this is an essential aspect of it, there's no reason not to continue forward and spend the money necessary to protect us 100 years from now. That is the purpose of national security. There is a border. It exists in cyberspace. They have buffer zones. Those buffer zones exist in the ability for us to project strength. And you know what? AI is part of our toolkit now. It was space, our nuclear weapons program. There's a lot of other stuff in the toolkit as well. Air power, another one, and AI will be that fifth pillar. And in the next few years, you'll be hearing all about it. These debates will run on Capitol Hill. Think tanks are arranging seminars as we speak for 2025, talking all about AI, which is a funny thing if you think about it. 5 years ago, it wasn't AI, it was cybersecurity. And the seminars were barely attended. You would have cybersecurity analysts from some of the big firms. They would talk about how there's a war in space, malware in space, how China is trying to basically interrupt our defense infrastructure by hacking it. We're not able to get after their hackers in China. We can try to extradite them, but nothing ever happens. That's all very physical. But in today's world, protecting American people, it's about also protecting us insider. And the only way to do that is through the best tool that we have, the ability to outspend our enemies.
Okay.
We have an
So I
$850
take
billion
it. I take
military
it.
budget.
So I take it you're not worried about They're not worried about a rising yields, rising deficit, bond vigilantes.
You know, I get a little bit tired of this argument because did you know our deficit historically versus GDP is not significant? I mean, it's not that much different than the 1980s and the 1960s. So if you actually look at the statistics, our deficit versus GDP is about the same. Now, in absolute numbers, sure, it's higher. Sure, of course, in absolute numbers, it's a lot higher. But at the same time, there's a lot of other ways to close the gap. And Donald Trump has talked about it. Increasing growth, increasing revenue by stop taxing companies who flee this country, and increasing tariffs are
Okay, so
great tools.
you said deficit as a percent of GDP is normal, right? But my understanding is that it's about 8% today, the highest it's been without a recession. Is that not correct?
That our you mean that our deficit our debt to GDP?
Hmm. No,
But
deficit,
yeah, the
budget
debt to
deficit.
GDP is very
But
high.
no, not debt to GDP, budget deficit to GDP.
What's our GDP right now? What's our budget?
Um,
If you actually look at the numbers, I mean, I could post a link if you want. 1 second.
Deficit as a percentage of GDP, I thought was about 8%. A $2 trillion deficit.
This is the first link I could find off the cuff, but I could find some more.
Like a lot of times people kind of compare today to the 1990s, but back then Clinton had a balanced budget, right? Especially in late 90s.
Well, there was a
That's
difference. We
not
just beat
very
the
different
Soviet Union.
today.
We didn't have that's a ridiculous argument that I hear often. We had just finished the Soviet Union. We didn't have any near peer threats. It was a unipolar world that is not the same world that we live in today.
Hmm.
I
So
mean, do you know how much China is spending on this?
you're already facing a very high, um, you know, deficit as a percent of GDP, highest outside of recession times. So this is Jeffrey Gundlach's argument. So what are you going to do if you also run into a recession and now you have to spend even further to get yourself out of the recession? That the deficit as a percent of GDP will blow out to double digits, and that's when you're going to start getting into U.S. credibility issues, credit rating downgrades, and then the longer end of the yield curve will continue to rise higher than people think. What do you
I
think
think you're
about that?
forgetting about the important aspect there, what our GDP growth is. We're becoming an anti-competitive country internally due to overregulation and a misunderstanding of how economics really works. Other countries, like some European countries, they're enacting austerity measures because their growth is going nowhere. They are so overregulating their countries. It's so anti-competitive. No one wants to build a business there. You know, talk about Germany or France and so forth. But that's the reason why Donald Trump and Elon Musk talk about competitiveness. If we can make America a competitive country again, we can increase our GDP growth to 4% within the next 5 years. And if we do that, then it's not really an issue anymore. We can continue spending at these limits. But then there will be no credibility problems with the bond market either. But the question is, can we become a competitive country again? And I believe we can. We have it in ourselves to build the greatest businesses in the world and get people back to work. We don't have it in ourselves to destroy this country from within by only thinking about regulating this or that or increasing the taxes on that. That is not the way to build a competitive country. That is the way to destroy a country.
Okay.
So do you think through, I guess, the AI tech that we're kind of innovating over here, that's going to really help create that growth curve? That's going to accelerate us into, I guess, the golden age. Is that's going to be like the driving portion of it? I mean, considering we're probably going to have, some of the best AI, and we have all the best hardware. I know that
Evo,
the
let me
United
ask you a
States.
quick question. Let me ask you a quick question. Had we invested in nuclear for 30 years and we were actually able to implement the same kind of nuclear programs that the Chinese have and have modular across the United States, bringing down energy prices so that manufacturing can come back up to this country and be competitive again, would we even be having this conversation? What was the reason why we didn't want that? Because we thought by overregulating our country that would somehow make us competitive. No, obviously that is not the way to do it. And now we are starting. It's going to take some time, guys. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be an easy road whatsoever. But if we can just end those regulations on small things, right? Keystone Pipeline, allow oil drilling in Alaska, nuclear power, getting it back into where it's needed. Small steps like that could have huge dividends in the future. And those are just small examples. It doesn't say anything about our regulation of the banking system, of crypto, anything like that. There's so many things that we could do to increase our competitiveness.
No, you make good points. I mean, we're basically just taking steps forward now instead of taking steps back, because regulation doesn't really do any justice. I mean, some regulation is good and important, but most of the times it's definitely more risk averse in that regard. And the government is very risk averse in most regards because of that, and it slows down our progress. If you notice, a lot of private industry that takes over a technology that the government has worked on um, has less regulations because it's the money from the private sector versus government funds, and you really see an exponential growth curve. So I'm excited for the future, to be honest.
Yeah, I think everyone should be extremely
Steve,
excited.
let me ask you a question. In which industry are we going to see real productivity increase? Like it's really replacing human labor at this point in terms of AI applications. What do you think is going to be which industry?
You're saying which industry are we going to see replaced first, or
Yeah, that's going to get to a point where we're seeing an increased unemployment rate in that industry because of AI.
um, well, I mean that's tough because I mean if we don't have really robots out right now, but I mean as far as what I can say that's tangible is driving. I think what you're going to see is a lot of like rideshare services in the very beginning will be first adopted. Of course, we all know that with FSD kind of becoming a thing, overnight, basically Uber and Lyft is gone. Those jobs will be on the wayside. I don't really know what they're going to have that's going to be competitive in the future.
So let me ask you, when do you think Uber drivers will find it uncompetitive to compete with robotaxis? When do you think they're going to start kind of exiting ride sharing industry in mass?
When you have Teslas that are fully adopted in every state, if we have a federal
Okay, so
approval,
what year do you think that is?
probably 2026. I think that's when we're going to have those
I will
cars.
bet you coffee that we
Okay.
will not have Tesla robotaxis in multiple states. Let's say you said nationwide in
If
every
we get a
state.
federal approval, yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you 10 states. I don't think we'll have Tesla robotaxis in 10 states by the end of 2026. What do you say to that coffee bet? Okay.
Okay. So what? I say 50 states by 2026. You say 10 states. Okay.
No. I'm saying it's not going to be in more than 2 states, but
Mm,
for the coffee bet, we'll say at least 10 states because I think
okay.
50 states would be too easy.
Okay.
And they already said they're going to do in a couple of states first.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
all right. I'm
Put
going
me
to
down.
jot that down. What about call centers? I thought, maybe call centers are going to be the first industry where we see AI replacing humans.
Yeah. So you got to think a lot of the labor. I mean, you should know. I mean, a lot of the labor force, the stuff that we don't think about. Generally speaking, every industry has a job. Everybody's worked with somebody that's like, oh, that's the low man of the totem pole job that no one wants to do. Whatever industry you're in, there's always that job that like is a least favorite, depending on what you're doing. That will probably be the first job that's replaced by humanoid robots. And it'll be a welcome sight. I mean, everybody will be welcome to it. And then eventually there'll be a switch where people start getting replaced. And that's going to cause a lot of issues because they're not going to see the potential outcome of growth for new opportunities. The people are going to have to probably go back to school, but they will be paid more. I just hope that industry is able to help people transition.
Okay. Jimmy, what do you think is going to be the first industry?
That would be airplanes. We're going to replace large swaths of our air fleet with AI-based drones to make people safer. We won't have to lose any more pilots. And there's also going to be ships. The maritime industry is going to be changed quite a lot by making smaller ships that require less people that are AI piloted. Let's not forget the many sailors who've died in the past. One example would be about 6 years ago was a rogue wave that killed a whole crew and just tossed this gigantic cargo ship that was carrying iron ore from Australia to Japan, and they just disappeared. The debris was found, but the crew was disappeared. And those are things that will be immediately replaced.
Okay.
Uh,
So Steve-O, I pinned at the top the coffee bet. Tesla robotaxis in 10 states by 2026, which by means by the end of. So you say you have the yes side, I have the no side. All right.
Thank you, Jan.
All right. I mean, even Waymo, despite their basically endless capital and track record of running fleets in multiple cities now for years, they're having difficulty expanding beyond the two states they're in today, Arizona and California. Texas, they're testing, but they haven't really. They've been at that stage for like a year now, which is amazing, you know. And so I think this rollout that now Tesla is also starting to do city by city. I guess I think earlier they had ambitions of doing it with one software update overnight, but I think the reality is setting in about having to do this gradually. So even Tesla is now just kind of starting with Austin, and then we'll see in what other cities. But it's going to take a long time. The rollout is going to take a long time.
Which is confusing to me because, I mean, it's a camera-based system.
Yeah,
And it should be adapted everywhere. It's not like we're having high-quality maps.
yeah,
I
but
think that there's
the reliability is not there yet. Like if you look at Tesla FSD tracker, it's still 97% of drives completed without a critical disengagement. And that's despite the fact that there's a bunch of people. Anyway, so you're gonna need, I think, my rule of thumb continues to be, which because it continues to work, that to have the error rate of an AI model, you have to 10x the training compute and time. And I think ChatGPT has been able to kind of do this, thinking model. It takes a while to come up with a better answer, but you obviously can't do that on FSD. You have a split second to decide. So you can't sit there for minutes to think whether I should change lanes to the next one or not. So I think Tesla FSD is kind of plateauing in terms of its progress here. There's got to be another algorithmic breakthrough. So we'll see. We'll see what that ends up with. But 97% means to get to 99.9999% reliability, you're going to need 14, so 10 to the power of 14 times more training compute.
I know
That's a lot of NVIDIA GPUs. We're talking, let's assume, like right now they're using hardware 4. Okay, that 97% I quote is just hardware 4 vehicles. They haven't been able to push FSD 13 to hardware 3. They push something along the lines of 12.6, which is supposed to have some elements of V13. But users indicate that it's not as good as hardware 4 vehicles. So clearly, hardware 3 has come to the limits of what it can do, which means hardware 4 is going to get there too at some point. My guess by 2026, we're going to start seeing differences between hardware 5 and hardware 4 vehicles. But even if you assume multiple times more performance hardware 5, multiple times more performance hardware 6, 7, 8, etc., you still need orders of magnitude improvement on training time, training cost. So once we do all that math, I think you'll get into like tens of billions of dollars need to be spent. And where's Tesla going to get tens of billions of dollars to buy NVIDIA GPUs? And if you leave it to Jimmy, Jimmy is going to spend the entire US budget times 10 on NVIDIA GPUs. So Elon will be competing with Trump on buying the GPUs. Thanks, Jimmy, for making the FSD impossible for the rest of us. Steve, go ahead.
I think Elon was stating that they do a 10x improvement for their infrastructure every 6 months. So given that timeline, we should exceed that 14x.
Yeah,
probably
well,
by at least the end of this year.
historical data doesn't support that statement.
I feel like I've heard this information elsewhere where you have seen a 10x improvement every 6 months, and that gap has been shrinking. I know it's
Yeah, that's just not true. Sorry. Look at Tesla FSD tracker. You're looking at, let's see, with V11. Okay, sorry, V10. You're looking at 85% of drives complete without a critical disengagement. And with V11, you're looking at 91%. With V12, you're looking at 94.5%. And V13, you're looking at 97%. So every version is having the error rate. So that means if you kind of extrapolate from there, assuming away any algorithm breakthrough, V14, 98.5 to 99%. V15, let's say 99.5. 16 is going to be 99.75, etc. So to get to 99.9999, I hope it happens in my lifetime. I just had a birthday. I'm getting older. And Tesla FSD isn't improving fast enough for me to ever see it right now. I don't know. A little dramatic, obviously, but it's not going to happen in the next 5 years. Maybe Optimus will drive for us. Who knows? Anything else? Well, I have my coffee bet of the day, so let's call it a day. Actually, let me see. Jimmy. No, I think I'm good.
I'm happy to talk about very, very important things right now. Because that's what I did.
I think everyone agrees on inflation coming down. What else can we discuss here?
I would like to discuss Trump coin and Intel.
Yeah, just 1 second. Steve, did you have something to say?
No, this reminds me of the story where you give somebody $1 million or you give someone a penny over 30 days. I feel like we're about to hit that engagement where you see exponential growth this year.
Okay.
I really do. So
Jimmy,
I
what do you?
5 years is going to be shrink is less than that.
All right. Well, we have our bet. We'll see. That's why we have coffee bets. Jimmy, did you buy your Trump coin?
I did. I'm a proud Trump coin owner. Very
Bullshit.
disappointed with Florida.
Bullshit. There's no way you
Right.
did.
Very disappointed that Solana's network continued to fail.
All right,
They need a
you
lot-
have 3 seconds to answer this question. What's the price right
Okay.
now?
I think it's $45.
38.
I can check. Let's see.
No, you missed it. You missed it.
No, I didn't. I'm not
You had
selling.
your shot. You shot your shot, and it's gone, Jimmy.
It's not
Did you
true.
buy
It's
Did you buy Melania coin?
Of course, I bought Melania coin, and it was hard because whenever I tried to do the transaction on Solana, Phantom Wallet, Radium, and so forth, it never really worked. So I was spending 2 hours just clicking, clicking, clicking. And really, this is the issue right now. This is the
Have you
problem.
ever bought Bitcoin, or do you have Bitcoin
Yeah,
today?
yeah, I have. So, but that's very different, though. You can buy it on exchanges.
You can buy Trump. You can buy Trump coin in exchanges too.
Yeah, you can now. It's on. Trump got listed on Binance 2 days ago.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is so important because this is the beginning of the movement. We're saying no to the Davos elite. And it's one of the reasons why Elon was a forerunner into this Keystone project, Doge, and other things. It proves to the Davos elite we are private. We can do it on our own. We don't need your ecosystem. We're building an ecosystem of our own for the future. It's that way the movement will work. If we decentralize the finance of this movement, we allow everyone to have a stake in it. And by buying Trump and other things, could be Dogecoin or whatever it is, we don't need to go to Davos and ask them for money. We can basically say, okay, guys, no more traditional elites. Now it's the people who matter.
Okay.
And let's talk about Intel.
No.
Let's talk about something else which really matters to me.
No, I think we're good. All right. Now I want to keep this to 1 hour. Thank you very much, everybody. And I'll chat with you all next time. Take care.
You can